What's up, guys? I have got to get this expressed. Carl Jung, he's got depths that I keep discovering just how much he gets it. Yesterday, I had this insight about the anima, and I wanted to talk about um, what it's all about. And diving right in, the understanding the anima, which is essentially the feminine principle within the masculine, and animus would be the masculine principle within the feminine. And so the way that has applied to me is I've sort of discovered within myself the anima, or the feminine principle within me, and what that means. It basically started when I started to study the subconscious mind. The conscious and subconscious mind are also Carl Jung, and most of us have heard that the subconscious mind essentially takes orders from the conscious mind. The conscious mind will unwittingly, most of the time, send messages to the subconscious mind, and then the subconscious mind will go about creating those things as external realities in the body, in external circumstances. Essentially, we are what we think about most of the time. The conscious mind passes those messages on to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is like the crew in the ship, and the conscious mind is like the captain. The captain has a view of where things are going, and the crew doesn't have a view of where things are going. They just do as they're told, and they carry about what their function is. So a lot of the times, Carl Jung also talks about how the beginning half of our lives, we're sort of building up our ego self and our idea of who we are. And he says that the second half of our life, we kind of deconstruct that, and then we get to who we actually are. I'm 39, so that's kind of an interesting point in time that I'm at to start understanding these concepts. But the anima, basically, as I was coming across the subconscious and the true power of the subconscious mind, which is associated also with like dreams, I started to have more dreams, and I started to kind of analyze those dreams and look up the meanings of the different things that I was dreaming. ChatGPT is actually, or just general AI, is great for dream interpretation. Just like everything, you have to have moderation with it. You don't want to get too lazy in your thinking. But as a tool to be able to pull from all of the different archetypes and meanings across the internet, basically, it helped me to kind of narrow down, wow, I think there's some meaning to what's really coming in here. And then I got a hold of this book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, by Joseph Murphy. The Witch of Wall Street is actually where I was recommended that book. And she kind of talks about creating a mental reality that then starts to reflect in your external reality. So diving into the subconscious mind, I realized that it was really just a question of having the conscious mind program the subconscious mind to create the results that the conscious mind might desire. Similar to like Aladdin entering the Cave of Wonders in order to get the lamp and then be granted 3 wishes for whatever he wanted. So it's this sort of, when we go into our Cave of Wonders, or our subconscious mind, we recognize, one, that there are rooms full of treasures and hidden treasures, and there are also rooms that are too dark that we've been afraid to venture into. I also had a dream recently that I was underwater, and there was like a dark section of water, and I had to sort of and I was more lucid than I usually am in most of my dreams. And I had to kind of make the decision to go into the darkness. And that kind of was symbolic of this cave of wonders, going into the subconscious and not being afraid of our deepest fears, because essentially there's this confidence that, and understanding the archetypes, there's this confidence that once you face those dark things, once you open the closet door to the monster that you believe is in there, number one, things are never as scary as your mind makes them out to be. And number two, the reward for confronting that shadow part of yourself, that dark part of yourself that has been repressed or neglected or ignored, typically results in some amazing benefits. But in navigating the subconscious mind or the cave of wonders, essentially what the archetype points to is that when you do that, you then have access to infinite potential. You can create anything you want, just like the genie represents basically all powerful. You can do anything you want. You could be anything you want. Aladdin wanted to be a prince, and so that's what he wished for. All wrapped up in that story is, of course, be careful what you wish for, because essentially we are constantly making wishes with our conscious mind, communicating habitually to our subconscious mind through what we think about most of the time. We're making wishes. And those wishes can be things like, oh, I'm never going to be good at blank, or whatever. Or those wishes can be, man, I'm really good at blank. So something I've been hearing lately is a little bit of delusion can be good in terms of training your subconscious mind. So I want to dive into this concept of anima. The breakthrough that I had last night was this deeper side of the anima. So if you've gotten this far in the video, we've kind of laid enough groundwork, I think, to be able to move into this second layer, or maybe third or fourth, I'm not sure. But basically, women in men's lives, and of course, men in women's life would represent the animus. Women represent the anima, and we project out onto women our conception of anima, or the female principle within us. I'll speak for myself, but I think that this is very human. I seek in others what I subconsciously know is within me. And when there is something that I have not faced within my subconscious mind, that appears, and when it's like the anima, that appears as a woman who will present in a particular way, and then I will unconsciously or subconsciously project onto her the things that I need to confront, and I will be looking for her. I will be looking in her for the things that I actually want to find in myself. I seek external solutions for an internal issue that I need to sort out. The treasure in the cave of wonders that I am seeking by looking for, let's say, the perfect woman, the first step in actually receiving that is looking inward and finding that within myself. That's where the sort of insights really started to flow in. Anima is answering my deepest questions. I can look at a sample of the women that I have been interested in or allured by, or even feeling like there's this fated meeting or something, like something's happening here, like that scene in the Matrix Resurrections when Neo sees Trinity but doesn't remember her, but then they shake hands and there's this "have I met you" type of a thing. I'm looking for my anima in women. And that is all a subconscious activity. So what starts to happen when I make that conscious? That's when things get really fun. But um, I will share that with myself. I am a big fan of astrology, and I have been constantly drawn to women who have their Venus in Aquarius, in the early degrees of Aquarius particularly. And I've noticed that for years. And I've kind of noted it, but I haven't really known what it meant. And last night I was having this insight that my part of fortune, which is essentially a calculation in somebody's chart that points to what brings that person the most fulfillment and joy. If you focus on that area, and mine is at 3 degrees of Aquarius, if you focus in that area, the promise is essentially that you will find joy and fulfillment because it'll be the highest expression of yourself. And so Venus is the planet that represents how we relate to others, and it also represents women. And so if I have been constantly finding women with early degrees Aquarius Venuses in my life, that is essentially me searching for my deepest joy in them. They represent a woman or a Venus, or how I relate to that degree in my chart that promises the most fulfillment and joy. And so I'm really looking for that in myself. And I'm projecting that onto these women, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have found this woman that is this, that, and the other that brings me joy, that brings me fulfillment, that I'm looking for. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it is still potential for a projection that, let's say that she doesn't really have to offer a lot of things in another way, let's just say, not to say that that has happened, but I will be convinced that this is fate, that I've met this person, because I will feel that she represents something that brings me great joy and fulfillment. And so this is a very common phenomenon, is this projection of our anima out onto the women in our lives, or if I were a female, that would be a projection of the animus onto the men in my life. Sort of interesting. I mean, we both have these things, just from a different viewpoint. So I have essentially been subconsciously looking for my greatest joy in women. I have spent hours and hours and so much energy of my life basically trying to find this, when really to find it externally, when really internally was where it has been hiding in plain sight the whole time, in the sort of cave of wonders. But I have had to be courageous enough to face my shadow self, my darker side, but my repressed, let's say, feelings of anger or sadness or whatever emotions have been sort of too painful to face. A lot of these can be things that I stored away when I was too young to know how to even cope with these things. So I don't consciously even remember a lot of these things, let's say. But these things come up, and when we're ready to receive them, when we're ready to heal them, they come up. And so the thing that we fear is essentially what we need to face. And so this has kind of led me towards this concept of anima. And so that's not to say, okay, well, I guess I've just been projecting and women don't hold any of the things that I actually want. The process is multi-step. It's basically, at this stage, and I hope this resonates with people that are watching this, synchronistically, I hope that you find this at the right time. But essentially, when we recognize that we have been projecting out what we want to find in ourselves, then we turn that energy inward and we do find it in ourselves. So the question next is, how do we find it in ourselves? So what I'm finding is that the way to sort of integrate your anima with yourself as a male, let's say, or your animus as a female, the way to integrate those things is different for animus and anima. But I would talk about anima because of my personal experience in it. And then I'll kind of touch upon animus as well. Anima, the way to integrate that is through creativity, is through, for example, let's say Jasmine in Aladdin is the anima. There is a scene at the beginning when she's talking about wanting to marry for love, where she releases all of the birds from the cage, and it just is this. So anima represents the thing inside of us that wants to be free, wants things to be simple, wants to be free, wants to be creative, essentially wants to express the female principle. And so that can come in everything from art to writing to content creation, to expressing freedom in different ways, to expressing yourself generally. It is connecting with that more tender part of ourselves as men that we have most of the time been socially conditioned to neglect in order to be, let's say, providers, in order to be tough as nails, in order to be protectors. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the process of learning these things. And so one of my greatest fears through like my 20s and 30s was, oh my gosh, can I provide? Can I be that, that man, that provider, that protector, that I need to be for the people in my life that rely upon me? And one of my greatest fears was to like fail in that. And so essentially over time, I had to face that fear, and I had to kind of do what I needed to do in that. And we can talk about that another time. But then recently it has become, I need to be creative. And that is a vulnerable thing. I need to be expressive. I need to take time and let's say create art or something, or make content. I need to identify areas of my life where I am not free. Identify areas of my life where I am playing a role and I am giving my power, let's say, to somebody else out of fear. So fear-based obedience. What things are keeping me in the matrix? What things am I afraid to do differently? What change am I afraid to bring about because I've built my whole life around this change, let's say, or around this thing that I've come to understand it represents, like safety, stability, security, these types of things. So even when my heart is telling me one thing, I'm staying in a place because I perceive the safety and stability of it. Those are sort of the things that you've got to start to confront if you really want to express the freedom that your anima really desires. In the same way that Jasmine let out those birds and they flew out into their freedom, and it just had this sort of cathartic effect on her. That's essentially what our soul or our anima is waiting for. That's that red pill moment where you choose freedom and truth and freedom over comfort and stability. Blue pill is you take that every day and it keeps you in that sort of, look, it's not necessarily truth, but I'm going to tell myself that it is because it's the best I've got, and it's stable and it's secure, and I've got all the answers, and everything is fine. But then there's that sort of quiet protest that your heart or your anima or your soul keeps whispering to you about wanting truth and wanting freedom and wanting expression, doesn't want to be neglected anymore. Pretty soon things come to a head If they're not faced, eventually, things get more and more dysfunctional until they are faced. So better to just sort of do the things that I can to give expression to that side of myself. So essentially, then, once I have done that, that means that I have now integrated my animus and anima, or myself and my anima, in my case. Now, just to touch upon briefly, the animus would be our drive and would be our ambition and would be these other things. So a woman that was looking to integrate her animus would be willing to take up space, would be willing to exert herself and be assertive, and that eventually would lead to this integration, which then would make it so that she didn't have to keep projecting that on to the men in her life and then bringing on these men, let's say, that were oppressive in nature or domineering in nature, and so that she could kind of find that in herself instead of trying to find it externally. So, okay, now that we've integrated anima, now we no longer have the need to project that onto the women in our lives. I should speak for myself. As I'm integrating my anima, I no longer need to project those needs or that search onto the women in my life. I can find that within myself. I could be that for myself. I don't have to depend on someone else. So then there is this sort of immunity to codependency. I'm not aligned with that anymore because I don't need that. I have found it in myself and I've given expression to my anima. So I no longer need that from somebody else. It doesn't complete me. She doesn't complete me because I'm already complete. I'm already whole in the sense that I have integrated my anima. So I no longer need to seek out codependent relationships or needing someone else. And then if somebody comes in, it's because by the law of vibration, they're going to vibrate similarly, or they're going to resonate with me at this level. And then I will meet somebody who has integrated her animus, instead of projecting that animus onto me and saying, I need you to be X, Y, and Z for me. I need you to have that vision and drive to move our lives forward. No, she would already have integrated that. If it's going to resonate with me, because I have already integrated my anima. So now we would no longer need to project onto each other and have a codependency, all right? And those never work. I mean, they work in the sense that you could marry and not get divorced, but work in terms of reaching the highest level of a relationship does not mean codependency. It means two whole people that don't need each other, but they choose to be together because they are aligned and they resonate. And think of all the energy that you put into this projection and codependency. I need this. You have this expectation from me. This is part of the deal. So now think of all that energy that we all have put towards our codependent relationships that way. And think about what it would be like if that level of energy was going towards just being yourself authentically and expressing yourself both in the animus and anima integrated type of way. And then imagine if that were paired with somebody else who was doing the same thing. That is the true sort of potential here. And so that is why I say anima is answering all of my deepest questions. Because essentially it's telling me that I have been projecting onto women these things that I think I need. I need to turn that energy inward and find those things in my own cave of wonders, in my own subconscious mind. And then okay, that will relate to having a healthy relationship, but that's only the beginning. If I integrate with my anima, I also have access to the cave of wonders, which essentially means that I can manifest into my life anything that I want. That's this sort of archetype of the lamp and the genie. Once these things are integrated, it is said that the anima is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. The anima is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. So think about the archetype of Hades and Persephone. Hades is the ruler of the underworld / the subconscious mind. Persephone is the mother of Demeter, and she is what brings, when she enters into the underworld with Hades, which is actually an abduction in the myth, but when she enters the underworld with Hades, she brings the sort of summer and spring with her. And when she leaves the underworld, then it's sort of winter and fall, or the other way around. Basically, on Earth, when Persephone is gone, then the people on Earth lose that spring and summer vibe, and they get the fall-winter vibe. So this is very much, Persephone represents the anima. Hades represents the subconscious mind. So anima is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. So we would be Hades in this example. And we need to essentially win over Persephone and say, hey, the underworld's not so bad. Hey, you can, let's say, here's this room, this creative space, just how everything you wanted. You can do art and you can express yourself. And then Persephone becomes happy and she brings the benefits of, let's say, the subconscious mind. In this case, let's say we have the calling to say, okay, you are Hades, you have to persuade Persephone. You have to bridge, come here, bud. You have to bridge between the conscious and subconscious minds. And if you do that, you have access to anything you could ever want. So then we'll break into that kind of another time about how the subconscious mind, by sort of giving expression to the anima, is then that key that unlocks everything that your subconscious mind has to offer. There's my dog Scout. So essentially, anima, wow. Carl Jung, wow. And if you look around to, you notice I talk about movies like The Matrix or Aladdin. If you look around at the stories being told, at the archetypes around, you'll see this. You'll see that the anima is almost always the counterpart to the hero, the woman that the hero does everything for, that gives him purpose and that gives him that sort of true love's kiss that brings him back from death. Let's say Neo, when he's kissed by Trinity, when he has been killed by the agents, then he resurrects, comes back, and is able to face the agent or face that shadow side of himself, or the Jafar, so all of this is being told in the stories all around us. So that's anima, and that's my take on it. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment and we can have a discussion. I'll do more sort of expanding out on the little branches that have kind of arisen in this video. Thanks for listening.